A single cyber attack can disrupt internet service for one or many, yet many customers and some ISPs are unprepared. When slowdowns or outages occur due to scams, malware, or denial of service attacks, customers often blame their provider, damaging trust. Without strong security, ISPs face service disruptions and frustration. This podcast explores real threats, defense strategies, and ways to educate both operators and customers on cybersecurity challenges.
Vikram, founder and CEO of Nandi Security, and I'm excited by anything and everything cybersecurity.
My name is Nathan, and I'm the IT director at People's Telecommunications, and I'm also a certified unmanned aerial systems operator.
Hi, I'm Dustin, Director of Network Operations at Diller Telephone, and security researcher and family man.
Welcome, gentlemen. Good to be back. Good to see you guys again. We have an interesting episode this time. What are we going to do? What we're going to do is do a little bit of role play. So today, Dustin and Nathan are going to be cybersecurity specialists and heads of cybersecurity at their broadband service providers. The three of us are going to pretend we work for the same company. And Dustin and Nathan are going to try to redesign the entire cybersecurity framework for their network from scratch and come to me, the CEO, with a report to explain why they want to do it and what the framework is and what the thought process is, what kind of solutions they want to consider if they had the chance to do it all over again. Now, there is a catch to this. The catch to this is that they have to work with a budget of $100,000. So the initial budget is $100,000. So now let's pick the brains of our cybersecurity experts to see how they would design the cybersecurity framework for a rural broadband network from scratch if they had the chance to do it all over again. So with that, gentlemen, let's get into the problem if you guys are ready. You guys ready?
Yes, sir.
Cool. So let's think about it from the standpoint of the attack. So what is it that would be the highest priority attacks that you would want to defend against if you had the chance to do it all over again from scratch? So how about Nathan, you go first, and then we'll go to Dustin.
First and foremost would be the boots on the ground physical security of the building and the network and the endpoints and servers. And then secondary, I think the biggest worry is going to be anything that has human error involved or human involvement, phishing, social engineering, and those type of threats.
Got it. Dustin?
Okay. The ones that I chose to focus on would be phishing, ransomware, and exfiltration of data, just because of some situations in the past that I've been in. And just based off of my personal experience with that, it really made me want to drill down into those three categories, just because we can't always prevent, somebody clicking on something. Statistically, it's going to happen. But what we need to be able to do is from that point forward, be able to have insights on how did this happen. I really like what Nathan said with the social engineering and human factor, because most ransomware incidents are based off of that. And the exfiltration of data would be like, let's say you did get ransomware, okay, and this, that, and the other thing happened. How are you going to verify that that threat actor took what they said they took? Where's that checkpoint at? And you may not be able to put all this information together in your own local office or whatever, but those would be the key points that you could hand off to another third party to help you with the investigation process.
The forensics part of it.
Yeah.
So
not the initial Go ahead, Nathan. Sorry.
Before the meeting, it's okay. Before the meeting, I did some internet research on data breaches and successful incidents. And it depends on which source you look at. But if you look across all the different sources that have done studies, it's between 70 and 95% of all incidents have human involvement, where there was a human error or a lack of education or something that a person did that allowed the incident to take place or enabled the incident to take place.
And the truth is that all of this is accentuated by the fact that now there's so much of data available about all of us, right? So the attacks these days that are extremely targeted, right? It's not you're not getting an email that's asking you to just click on something where you win $1 million, but it's a little bit more targeted, where you could get something like, hey, you dropped something at Target yesterday at 7 p.m., right? The fact that you are at Target at 7 p.m., how does an attacker somewhere across the world know that? Because they're able to buy information about you, your geolocation, your ad ID, your or whatever else, your buying patterns, etc., from third parties like data brokers, etc.
Well,
So
and
okay,
they know all the services that you use too. And so when there's data breaches at certain places, like your online banking service, or like your services that you send money to your friends with, if they have a data breach and then they get a list of all of that company's customers, now they know that you use this service, and so now they can impersonate that service and try to phish you with emails that look official to the service that they know you use and you're familiar with.
yep, very good.
Absolutely.
So okay, so you guys have been pretty clear about the problems you want to solve first off. So now pitch me on what you think is going to be the defense framework that you want to approach the solution with. Like what kind of a mindset, what do you think as priorities that you want to defend first? And give me that framework. So maybe Dustin, you go first this time.
Okay. The main things that I'd like to focus on in that question, what would be the defense framework? First, two-factor authentication is a must. VPN, I know that concept's kind of getting outdated, as we move forward, but still, at minimum, I think a VPN should be involved. Network segmentation, email, web proxies, and a SIM and XDR, EDR. And this all goes back to what I said when I first answered the questions, was that this was coming from my insight into my previous experiences of what would have been great, what we did good, what we did bad, kind of weighing that out. But that's where my main focus would be. Monitoring and logging and DNS filtering, like the service that you guys offer, Vikram, is any more essential because these botnets and threat actors all use DNS to do all their ransomware. Why not stop the way that they communicate? That's just another layer in the onion to reinforce your defenses. And virtualization with a good backup solution.
And the reason for the virtualization with backup is just recovery, right?
Yeah, and plus,
Yeah.
you could cluster that, and let's say something happens on one of your main ones. Let's say you get hit first. Well, you could set up instant replication to revert back, without it affecting your customer base that way. Or let's say a situation did arise where you needed forensic evidence and you needed a little bit of time to go through it. Well, obviously, you can't have the whole thing down at once. So just being able to pull that one machine without interrupting your workflows is awesome.
Yeah. And you're confident that you can do this with $100,000 budget?
Yes.
Nathan, your thoughts, sir?
I would start with the employee education is going to be one of the very first things to combat the phishing. But then a zero trust platform of some sort on your end stations and the DNS filtering. Also a strong email spam filtering and phishing detection would be great. You got to try to eliminate the possibility of the human factor falling through. So if somebody does click something and land on a malicious website and it downloads a file to their endpoint, that file can't execute with some sort of endpoint control where it does not allow anything to run on the machine that isn't already pre-approved. So that's where the zero trust comes in the least privileged. So you only allow what you know is safe already and what is required to do the job that the person needs to do. And then if the human factor happens, it's not okay, but at least it's not, more than likely your incident isn't going to happen because it gets stopped.
Yeah. And is backups in your framework as well, or no?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely need like an offsite backup that has ransomware protection on it so that you can easily replicate. If you do get a machine that gets infected with ransomware, you can shut it down really fast, take it off the network, wipe it clean, and go download your previous backup from the day before and easily get that restored and be back up and running within a few hours.
So let me double click on what both of you said, right? Which is you've given some tool frameworks that you would be interested in buying, but there's also it's tools, people, and processes that it takes. So with your 100K, how much of this is going to be from third-party vendors, or how much of this is going to be something that you roll your own?
I've got mine's all broken down into the different categories. So the physical security of my building, where all my things come back into, I'm looking at access control. So the door locks, access badges, and then security cameras and storage for the security camera data, because then you want to have that way you have evidence of anybody coming in and out of the building, what day they came in and out of the building. You can identify the people with high resolution cameras these days with facial recognition. You could even have it set up so that you have all your employees' facial recognition in your camera systems. And if it sees people that are not already recognized as people that are regularly in your building, it can mark that file and you can go review it. Then we're looking at server room security. So door locks, and then the racks and the cages should all be locked to prevent physical access to them. Environmental controls are also part of cybersecurity in a way. You might not think about it, but fire, water, and climate, because somebody could attack critical infrastructure by setting your building on fire. Employee security training. So training your people to how to spot suspicious behaviors. So like a third party comes into the building, they're the carpet cleaners, and you catch them fiddling around with some machine in the corner. That's a way for things to get in. So I'm looking at like about $27,000 for all of that to be put in place on the physical side of it. And then the top threats that I was worried about from the outside is the phishing and social engineering, ransomware, and the credential theft. So we're looking at about $44,000 for all of those solutions, which would be next gen firewalls and network segmentation and endpoint protection, zero trust, EDR, XDR, multi-factor authentication, email security, anti-phishing, secure backup solutions, and SIEM, vulnerability scanning and patching tools, and security awareness training.
And just to be clear, all these are subscription, right? So that 44,000 that you talk about is going to be a recurring expense.
Most of these services are going to be from a third party and are going to be subscription based, so they're going to be yearly.
Yeah. So as CEOs, yes, this is the case of $100,000 budget, but your next year's budget, if you're looking for improvements on this, it has to add on top of the existing subscriptions. Is a point that people need to keep in mind, especially on the leadership side.
Yeah, for sure. So the $100,000 budget might be $100,000 to get us started, but then it's going to be maybe $60,000 the next year, because we're not having to buy all new, brand new security cameras, and the physical things that we've bought aren't subscription based. Your security budget is not $100,000 every year.
Exactly. Dustin, your thoughts, sir?
Which question are we on here, Vikram?
Sorry, this is where I'm talking about. Well, you gave a bunch of solutions, but how much of this are you going to buy versus roll your own to stay within your $100,000 budget? So
about a third of mine would be, cloud-based services like what Nathan was talking about. With a small team, I'm pretty sure I could pull off a lot of these in-house, but that's just my individual preference. Not everybody has that ability
Yeah.
or, at their disposal to be able to do that. So I don't know. A lot of them would be subscription based, like the SIM, XDR, EDR. The network segmentation and engineering we all could do on the inside. I wouldn't be too worried about that. And the email web proxies kind of goes in line with what Nathan was saying about, email social engineering attacks. Really there needs to be a deep focus on that because that's a major entry point nowadays.
Hmm.
So a lot of it would be like, I'd say maybe 40% would be outsourced.
Got it.
I would agree.
Awesome.
Yeah, a lot of it would be.
Awesome. Well, as a CEO, then I got to think about risk, right? So here's two of you pitching a solution to me for a budget that I provided. Now, at the end of the day, something is going to happen, right?
Mhm.
The likelihood is always very high. So given that, how are you thinking about incident response? Like, how would you go about incident response in a framework like this? Cool.
Yeah. So I'm looking at having about 20,000 of the 100,000 going to um, that sort of thing, the compliance and legal consulting, so that we're with making sure that we're within compliance of PCI and the various cybersecurity policies that may be with our cybersecurity insurance policy. And then on top of that, you got to have the cybersecurity insurance and liability insurance for the cybersecurity, and then miscellaneous and contingency plans, and having a third party on hand or on standby in case there were an incident to help do forensics. Because definitely most companies are not going to have the staff or the specialty or the manpower to be able to handle the forensic side of it if there is an incident. So having somebody already lined up for that and on standby is definitely going to need to be in the budget.
Dustin?
I would agree with everything Nathan said. I would outsource the IR to an independent third party that specializes in that. They're going to be the most efficient, the most thorough. They're going to know like Nathan was concerned with, the legal ramifications of, what you're dealing with. And that crosses a lot of spectrums from the social political side of, the business clear back to the technical side. So why not let the experts do that? You could be boots on the ground, more effective that way, like if you did with what Nathan was talking about there.
Awesome. Well, okay. I've heard your pitch. I think you have a plan in place. Now let's get going. So how long from this point on to get this all up and running?
I estimated between 6 to 8 weeks based upon a company that about my size or a little bit bigger. It could be a few weeks more or less, depending on how we can negotiate the third party contracts.
Hey Nathan, in your time frame, was you considering the onboarding of the end user, like education wise? I was just curious.
I think the education wise is going to be an ongoing thing that is, it's going to be something that's going to have to be continuous on a schedule, like maybe once a quarter or something, that there's training exercises or tabletop exercises where you can take your people through different scenarios and the trending phishing tactics and such. So, probably not in the implementation that I consider the amount of time it would take for the education. I think that would be on top of it.
Gotcha.
Just to get all the products in place and lined out and get the hardware deployed and everything is what I was thinking, 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
Dustin, your estimate?
I took a little bit longer than Nathan did on this. I went with 8 to 10 weeks just because of the, turn up, the initial testing, and depending on whatever business it is, you're going to have different security requirements. that you need to be concerned with that are in place. So let's say something does happen again, your insurance company, you'll be able to go back and say, hey, I had all these checkpoints in place. That's just another layer of a little bit of mental security, knowing that at least you got that checked off. Different compliance standards, I would make sure that those were in place. So like 8 to 10 weeks, like with specialists involved.
So I need to go talk to the board and provide them the timeline. So what number would you be comfortable with me telling them? Would it be 12 weeks? Do you feel comfortable with the number you're stating, or would you want me to add another 2 to 3 week buffer into this?
I would say add some buffer to it because I would rather overestimate it and come in ahead of schedule than underestimate it and come in behind schedule.
Dustin, you agree as well?
Yeah, I do. I wouldn't want to set the expectation high and then, have certain X factors occur that sets the whole team back from deployment, or maybe we got a mismatch of, hardware, software, or maybe something with our cloud accounts happened. So, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I would have answered that as a CEO. I would have put that buffer in anyway without asking either of you. The reason being, two reasons. One is that no projects get done on time, right? There's always something that comes up. And you also have to plan for scenarios like you start this project, you have an incident in the middle of the project. It has nothing to do with all the tools you are putting in place. So now what? Everything gets delayed. Or you start this project and it's the holidays, right? And in this day and age, maybe you start this project and because of supply chain issues, you don't get the physical servers on time, right? It's stuck somewhere near the Suez Canal or whatever it is, right? Maybe you don't get the components. So this would be one thing from an executive perspective, is that this 30% buffer is something that I would add to it anyway before going to any kind of and presenting it. Okay, so now you have this opportunity. You've given me the tools. You've given me the solution. You've given me the framework. You've given me a timeline. Based on everything you've seen in your lives, from your current and past roles, what would be some of the best practices that you would now implement that you probably didn't implement before? Dustin, you want to go first on this one?
Yeah. So I would say an implementation of a security standard, bare minimum, and start developing robust security policies depending on the type of business, and have those security standards like NIST, PCI, DSS, HIPAA, PHI, for insurance reasons, because you may not be able to totally prevent something from happening, but you need, like I said, you just need to have that in the background to make sure that the business can keep going on, that it's not a showstopper.
Nathan?
I think having the third parties lined up and on standby is important, and something that it hasn't been done in the past for a lot of people. They don't think about it. They think that, oh, well, it's not, when it happens, we'll get somebody to come and help us. But there's not a 911 for this kind of thing where they're going to come to you really quickly. You got to seek them out and already have them lined up with a contract with them saying, hey, if we have an incident, we need you to be available and come help us figure it out on the pronto. Because the first 24 hours, just like with any kind of crime, 24 hours is the critical point of trying to figure out what happened.
Awesome. Hey, Nathan, I got a question for you. Would you shut down the business for a certain amount of time to allow proper gathering of, evidence and working with forensics teams? Or would you just, there's some companies that would try just to push through it. And in my experience, it was, it looked like it was a big hindrance to the investigation by doing that. So I'm just curious, what's your take on that?
I think it would probably be smart to shut down certain operations. Of course, depends on what the incident was. You can keep the as a service provider, you could probably keep your broadband network still running, and that's not going to be a problem because we've got it segmented, right?
Yeah.
So if it's segmented off and there's no evidence that there's been any threat to that part of it, you got to keep your customers online and your business is running. But maybe you shut down the business office where you're taking payments and talking to customers, and you just say, you just close the office and put a message on the answering machine or have somebody answering the phone, and get past the first several hours and try to figure out what happened and what's going on, what was the threat, and then go from there. That'd be yeah. I mean, I would consider it. You would have to consider it because you just keep doing business as normal, and something happened. Well, things could be getting worse. Definitely. You'd
So
probably
just taking that moment to pause and gather your thoughts, you feel is a good initial step.
Yeah, and especially if you know that something happened from the outside world, from the internet side. I would definitely take my network off the internet. Like I would go take my edge device that's serving my endpoints in the office and I would go disconnect from the internet for sure. Just you don't know what's talking back and forth until you start doing the forensics on it.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah, and that's kind of shoot yourself in the foot too because you cut that connection off, and now some of the forensic information is gone because all your logs are going to stop logging what was happening at that point. But you've got all the previous things that have happened, so you still have information to go off of, but you don't want to continue letting it happen.
I was just thinking about like servers. You know how when things don't work, hey, first step's rebooting everything. Well, in that specific instance, that rule is horrible because you're destroying a lot of memory forensics too. And so I feel like it's important to take that moment, like you said, to just stop and think about what's going on.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
You wouldn't want to restart servers either. I wouldn't restart any servers because who knows what's gotten on there. You restart it and now something else is executed that they've got lined up to execute when it boots back up or something. I think just isolating it from the outside world and basically segmenting yourself off so that there's no more connection. That's your physical link, and it's done from there. Now you just got to figure out what got in and what happened.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, Nathan, you tell me, you're the pilot in this audience, and if I'm not wrong, one of the things that pilots are expected to do in an emergency situation is that the captain of the plane is supposed to first thing, while his assistants or the co-pilots figure out the problems and try to figure out what's going on, the captain is supposed to just push his chair back and step back a bit and take a full view of the whole situation, and then come to a decision on what needs to be the priorities and how to proceed, etc. So tell me if that's a true statement.
Aviate, navigate, communicate. You keep the airplane flying, and you keep your navigating, and you're communicating, telling everybody what's going on and what you're doing.
Yeah, that is an awesome analogy and a great note to end on. Thank you, gentlemen. This has been very informative. Now, for the next episode, we're going to have something even more interesting where we're going to probably look to how to penetrate a potential network, given a design that we come up with, and see how we get in. Like, what are some common practices? Number one, number two, and also discuss how this changes now that the attackers have AI-powered tools at their disposal. So, cool. Thank you, gentlemen. See you next time.
See you guys. Take care.